What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Good evening and welcome back. It has been a minute, but we are back. This is Around the VLA Season 4, Episode 5. It is Thursday, March 14th, 2024. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. That is the VLA Director of Operations, Mr. Vince Zanzucchi, live from Phoenix, Arizona. He is a copycat. He has a bunch of guitars and music gear in the background of his shot because he just wants to be as much like me as he can. Vince, I think we have to get like maybe a members only series of content of you and I playing a bunch of music togetger.
I'm for it. Whatever's a revenue driver. I'm sure we can get at least
Yeah, right.
4 or 5 people watching that. So
I'm in a band here in Chicago. We're playing a show a week from today. I'm going to try and sneak a couple of VLA logos on stage and
there you go. Yeah, you
try
should
and plug us somehow.
all. It goes a long way.
Yeah, you know it. Brand recognition. All right. This isn't a music podcast. This is a volleyball podcast. We've got a lot to catch up on. It's been about a month since we've done a show. That's because we've been busy running around all over the place, coast to coast, running crazy, great volleyball events at super high levels and representing as every little corner of the country that we can possibly reach. So we're going to catch up on everything that's gone on, and then we're going to get to a preview of a very big event. I will be headed tomorrow to Cincinnati, Ohio for the Central Division Cup, which is going to be a huge tournament that we'll certainly get to. But Vince, we're going to go catch up on all the men's tier 1 divisions. And I think I kind of want to start out in your direction. I think I want to start in the West because a couple weeks ago, the Phoenix Ascension, the SoCal Rising Tide, of course, welcomed a tier 2 team up to play up in a West Division regular season event. That would be the Dallas Dogs. And out of that event a couple weeks ago in Phoenix, Arizona, came some really big league-wide developments. So tell us about the weekend, how everything went, how all the teams looked, and then we'll get to the league-wide implications after that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was a really, really good event. Huge shout out to Volleyball Festival for being able to, after losing State Farm Stadium and some random scheduling mishap, whatever, we ended up having to go to Legacy Sports Complex out in Mesa. It ended up working out really well. I mean, we had a great showing, a huge fan base. I mean, Ascension has a very good fan base out in Arizona, so it's always really good to see a lot of the familiar faces and a lot of the junior players that see us year to year and growing up and how they're getting better at their game and whatnot. And so it's really good vibes there. But I mean, this event was huge. I mean, Dallas Dogs came in. Obviously, you see the results right there. Dallas Dogs has been playing extremely well this year. But then on the other side, Rising Tide came up with Joe Kaliakamoa of all players,
Yeah.
to come out and play. And I mean, the lineup that we had, this was by far the best event that we've had in Arizona ever.
Ooh, that's interesting. I'm trying to think back into the history books of Arizona events. Like 2021 was the first ever event that Ruckus played in, but
Right.
that was kind of before they were the Ruckus that dominated. That was when like guys like Joe K and Surge were still playing for Ascension. You guys went 4-0 that weekend. Then 2022 was when Sport Connects was playing in the Tier 1 West.
Right.
And that was when I had to jump in and play on the Rising Tide, which was not a very good edition of the Rising Tide, needless to say. And then 2023 was when West Coast Brigade was there, and you and Rising Tide kept playing all those 5-setters. But yeah, as far as like 3 teams, top to bottom, that you're probably right. This probably was the best 3-team event ever in Arizona.
Oh, 100%. And obviously you see the team that came out on top, Dallas Dogs. I mean, they came the same exact roster almost. They had a few different, Shane Beamer not being there and
Tim Johnson.
Yep, and Tim Johnson wasn't there, but they had some guys come in, fill in, play some big minutes for him. And I mean, it was just a great lineup that they had. They played extremely well, extremely motivated. They knew what was on the line. They knew exactly what they had to do. And I hate to say it, but after you'll see right there in that fifth match results right there, as soon as they won that 25-19 match, second set, it did seem like they fell off a little bit. I think that they knew that they hit that point mark, and I don't want to say they handed us that match, but you could definitely see the gas was sputtering out there, and we were able to win and get the reverse sweep on them. But I mean, huge shout out to Dallas Dogs. I mean, what they accomplished out there.
Let's talk about it, because this is a huge deal. And the Dallas Dogs, that goal that you're talking about, that they knew what the target was, they accomplished it. The Dallas Dogs have clinched an offer of tier 1 promotion for 2025, and as has been their intention, they've made it really clear from the beginning of their existence last January of 23, that their plan was to get to VLA tier 1. And in less than 1.5 years, they have gotten to 50 points exactly. And we know now that that this event right here in Phoenix, Ascension Rising Tide Dallas Dogs, that will be the tier 1 West Division going forward. Just an insane accomplishment for the Dallas Dogs to come in knowing that they needed 14 points in 4 matches, which is almost impossible. The most they could have gotten was 16, and they got they're literally a perfect 12 points in their first 3 matches. And exactly like you said, Vince, as soon as they took 2 sets against the Ascension and their last match of the weekend, they knew that they clinched 2 points. They knew that they were getting to 50. They knew that their mission was accomplished. Just can't say enough about what Daniel Jacobs and that team have been able to put together in such a short amount of time to figure out what the VLA is all about, figure out what it takes to have success, and go out and earn it. Like I think it was between how many points did they come into the season with? Like 23 maybe.
Yeah,
they got 27 points in 2 events. Like, come on, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, very, very impressive what they had, what they accomplished in those 2 events. But I mean, even just getting to the promotion as it is, with only playing basically tier 1 and cup events, is all they've really done. You know, I mean, they haven't gone and played a lot of the side events. You look at Kentucky Unicorns, who just played nonstop against the teams in their area. You know, Dallas Dogs wasn't getting wins. No offense to what Kentucky Unicorns are doing, but they're not out there beating Midwest Mac or teams like that. They're out there playing against the they're Emiola is a huge,
they're like 3-0 against Emiola all time.
Teams like that. They're beating Milwaukee Dive. They're beating Rising Tide. They're beating Ascension. I mean, they are showing that they belong in the top tier, 100%. And I mean, the fact that they did it this quickly, I mean, just proves what they can accomplish, what they're capable of. And they're going to be dangerous. They're not playing again until VLA Cup, but they're going to be very dangerous at VLA Cup.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. They are 5-1 this season against tier 1 opponents. They're 3-0 against the Rising Tide, and they're 2-1 against Ascension. And I mean, kind of like Vince said, once they went up 2-0, they could afford to fall asleep a little bit in that last one. Like, couldn't be more deserving of a spot in tier 1. Not like, obviously they're competitively ready for it, but clearly they're organizationally ready for it too. And that's like just as big of a factor in what, and like how we've set up this format and how we've set up this promotional system, is to reward teams that are good, but also teams that are organized and teams that can get out and put teams together in different events, different styles of events across the country, and execute at super high levels. And it is just really exciting to be able to offer Dallas Dogs a spot in tier 1 next year. They're incredibly deserving, and they're gonna increase our competitive level for sure, but they're also gonna get us in a new market. It's so cool that, like, other than, I would say, Northeast Indiana, where Team Pineapple comes from, this will be like the second least boys volleyball dominated region that's going to be represented by a tier 1 team, right? It's like Boston, Greater New York City, like upstate New York, Chicago, Arizona, Southern California. Like, all of those have more of a boys volleyball pipeline growing up than Dallas does. And the fact that they've been able to put that together anyway, and we're going to get the VLA tier 1 events in Central Texas and North Texas very, very soon, is just awesome. It's so great. I'm excited about them.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see. And we knew that they had the talent going in. I mean, they played amazing last year. And just the focus that they had as a organization, I mean, they made no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, we're going to make tier 1. That's our objective. We're going to do it. And they just stepped up and did exactly that. So, I mean, it's going to be very dangerous then in our division moving forward in the West Division. I mean, us, Rising Tide, Dallas Dogs, The one thing about Dogs is, I mean, consistently the same guys over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't change their roster a whole lot, and that goes so far with a lot of these teams, because when you see that consistency, teams playing together and grinding together, it's what puts them, above other teams, and when they have that experience together, I mean, I think that they could easily be a favorite for next year to potentially take the West Division. So,
Yep.
It's going to be exciting to see how things develop, but I'm really excited for them and really happy that they're the team that's going to be stepping up in our division.
Agreed. Yep. They've put on a great show. They are very deserving. So, Vince, talk to me about the other two teams in the West Division. Start us off with your Phoenix Ascension, because you guys had a rough Saturday there in Phoenix. Lost in 4 to Dallas, lost in 3 to the Rising Tide, but then turned it around with 2 5-set wins on day 2. And honestly, I mean, you guys sit right now at 4-5 and 11 points. For a second there, you were 2-5 with, almost 2 events in the books. And was the feeling for you that the season was kind of hanging in the balance heading into that Sunday in Arizona? Because it kind of felt like it to me from the other side of the country.
I'm not going to lie. We had some conversations after those first two matches, and a lot of us were thinking about, how much money we were going to save not going over to Cincinnati for championships. And, we were like, okay, you know what, maybe this year, we just take this one off. But we mentioned that to Brian Lewis, and he wasn't having any of it. So
not surprised at all.
He got everyone right, set straight, and we definitely recovered from that. And the problem is right now is we are really trying to find some answers for outside hitter, particularly. Losing Patrick Ross was a big loss for us last year, and not having him, and just having a little bit more consistency. Turner Douglas, like, we didn't have him in the West Division Cup, had him in this one, and that was a huge help for us because we definitely needed his firepower on the outside. So, but then this one we also didn't have Charles Pullnow, so it's just finding that consistency is what we really need to do. And then Tyler Gardenhire coming in and setting for us in this one, without Zach Melcher. I mean, again, it's 2 completely different teams from what we had in West Division Cup to this one. And you can say almost the exact same thing about Rising Tide.
Yep.
I mean, we have some consistency, a little bit, much more consistency than Rising Tide, but still, it's when you have such key parts missing and interchanging parts, you got to find something. And luckily we did. It came together in that second day, and luckily we were able to come out with 2 wins and 4 points. But really, it looked pretty bleak, especially that 3-0 Rising Tide beatdown we took on day 1. I was pretty concerned about how the rest of the season was going to go from there. So, and unlike some of the other teams, I mean, we look at the standings and you see Northeast Force and Indiana Team Pineapple and where they're at. They both have cups coming up, and I actually only have cups left. Cups are the opportunity you get to possibly win against some tier 2 teams. Maybe a little bit lighter schedule early on to get some points. And we've already had our opportunity with that and didn't do so great. So, we are where we're at, and we got to have a pretty successful last 2 events, VLA Cup and West Division Event 2 in Long Beach near the end of the season. And so we got our work cut out for us, but I think that we're in a good spot now. I think that we are moving forward. I think that we're not where we want to be, but we're not hurting either.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a similar story for the Rising Tide. I mean, 1-3 with only 4 points on this weekend is I'm sure not what they were looking for. Now, this is kind of the classic West Division. It's definitely the most chaotic and unpredictable division year over year in the VLA. I mean, Rising Tide had a pretty good run at the West Division Cup. They lost again to the Dallas Dogs in the semis there. So that particular hurdle is going to be one to watch next year for sure. But I mean, they're kind of in the same spot. They're sitting at 4-5, 14 points total. The VLA Cup is going to be really important for them, and they're going to have to get a team up to Madison, Wisconsin, which, like, that style of travel to that style of event is not something they've been good at historically. So even though it's the same point total as for coming out of Arizona, I'm definitely a little concerned about the Rising Tide, and I would like to see them put a little bit of a better foot forward. They have several months to prepare. The VLA Cup is still about 2 months from now. So they've got plenty of time to put a good squad together, but definitely looking for a little bit more from them. Other than that win when they beat you guys on day one, not a whole lot of convincing volleyball from that team.
Yeah, no, it's the same story. I mean, just inconsistency, different roster. I mean, completely different roster from the first event, and it's one of the things that Rising Tide has typically been able to kind of skate their way through. I mean, they put on a strong first event, they play okay and kind of get through it, and then get to the championship to try to put together a team that's formidable and try to really be presentable to go far. I still don't feel like they've really put together the ideal championship roster that they could. But this year, I mean, their lineups are looking completely different from last year. They don't have any consistency from the middle aspect. It's just going to be really interesting to see what they do, because VLA Cup isn't designed anymore for Tier 1 teams to go and play low-level Tier 2 teams. It's designed to, you play a cross-pool match, you play a Tier 1 match right away. So, I mean, Rising Tide is going to play a Tier 1 team first match, and then their second match is going to be against a team that earned the gold bracket.
In like a single elimination format, yeah.
Right. And so unless they put something together, if they can put a combination of, and here's the thing, if they can put a combination of the team that they had in Phoenix, if they could put their SoCal team together, I mean, they could be one of the best teams in the
league,
in the VLA Cup.
Sure.
The problem is that they have two completely different teams that have never even played together before. So, it's just going to be interesting to see what they do. I do know one thing as far as the league regulations. They only got maybe 2 or 3 roster spots less, so they don't really have too many additions available for them as far as their roster guidelines go. And so I'm expecting to see some of these guys that were out there this past week, and in a combination moving forward. But again, it's to be seen. We'll see what comes with Rising Tide, and I mean, it's just all up in the air right now. It's got to play the game.
So yeah, big winners out of the West Division for sure are the Dallas Dogs. Congrats to them again. They'll be playing VLA Tier 1 in the West Division next year. You ready to move on to, you want to knock down kind of both East Division events together? I think that's a decent way to do it.
Yeah.
So thinking all the way back to early February, just over a month ago, as we were previewing on the last show that we did, the East Division kicked off their season at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut for the 3rd year in a row. That event is awesome. Big shout outs to the New England AAU volleyball group and Mohegan Sun in general. That is an awesome event. We get the Friday night primetime slot, which is always really cool. We get 2 games on Sunday right before the Super Bowl, which is also really cool. And Vince, stop me if you've heard this one before. Team LVC went 4-0 at Mohegan Sun. The Northeast Force went 0-4 at Mohegan Sun.
Which is crazy, because you totally predicted LVC going
3-1. I did not.
I
nailed that.
You did. You said 4-0. No, yeah. I mean, it's the same story, and it's what's crazy to see is that LVC, and you look at one guy, Joby Ramos. I mean, I know the whole team's playing, but that guy continues to work with what he's got and get wins. I mean, the guy is just fantastic.
Joby is that dude. He's so good.
Yeah, it's been just amazing watching him play, and just how the guys just I mean, he's like just a chewing gum out there. They just stick with him, and he just it's really impressive, and you saw it right there. I mean, cool thing seeing Bounce and Force doing what they do. I mean, a good rivalry there, but still Bounce continues to just have the guys. So just they still just kind of have their number, and so you don't see a lot of parity in this division, unfortunately for Force, because I feel like Force is much better than their record.
Force is much better than their record, but I think that kind of is a good segue into event number 2, because even though Force went 1-3 at this event, they walked away with 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like they lost 3 5-set matches, I think.
Yep.
No, they lost 2 5-setters. They lost a 4-setter, and then they swept Bounce to cap off the weekend. And like what was truly a season-saving win. Like if they lose that match, they don't get any points. They're 0-8. They're like their season's done. Like there is no rescuing that in East Cup, VLA Cup, whatever, because that's kind of exactly what we saw from them 2 years ago. Like their first season in Tier 1, they went 0-8 in their division, and then they had a decent run at the East Cup. They had a decent run at the VLA Cup, and it just wasn't enough. But
Right.
like they're at 6 points, and like one win, 6 points is pretty incredible. That tells me that they are close, and they've clearly been putting the work in the gym. They've been really putting things together. The high level of roster continuity. I think they had basically the exact same team, other than Garrett Minyard, ironically, who runs the team. He wasn't there there in Boston last weekend. But the Force are turning a corner, and I actually do like them going into the rest of the season because, like you said, they've got East Cup where they're going to get some more Tier 2 opponents, and then VLA Cup, you never know what's going to happen. But again, the storyline coming out of Boston was Team LVC. 3-1 this time, only 8 points, a lackluster event by their standards, but they still they completely control this division. It's only a matter of time until they have it mathematically clinched. Like it's just really amazing. And I also know that Joby Ramos was at this event, didn't play as much because he was fighting off like a pretty legit illness, kind of like a Michael Jordan flu game situation. Still just willing that team to 3-1, 8 points. Like Team LVC is Team LVC, and everyone else is just trying to get to that level.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you see just the depth that LVC has, the understanding amongst the team of their role on the team, and it goes so far. And it's one of those things where some of these teams need to kind of establish that hierarchy, right? Because I feel like some of the teams do have the potential, not so much to compete when it comes championship time. Not a lot of guys are bringing back a Mike Marshman or a Nico Surgeons, but I think some of these teams definitely have the ability to where some guys could understand their roles a little bit better, and maybe the team reps can understand their players a little bit better to where they can just match up in some of these matches to where maybe they can get that win against the LVC if they play the right guys. And that's something we talked about with Bounce a lot, is that's really going to have to be a deciding factor for them. And I don't know the answer, obviously, but just from an outsider perspective, I feel like when they kind of jumble some of the lineups up, I feel like they haven't gone 100% with their best lineup every time against them. So, I mean, it's just, again, it's a tough spot. I think Bounce is comfortable where they're at after 2 events. 4-4, just kind of doing what they do. I mean, last year they got to the championship doing exactly what they're doing right now. So
that's a great point.
And so we'll see how it goes. East Division Cup, VLA Cup is what's left on the docket for both or all 3 of these teams. And I mean, I would not underestimate all 3 of these teams making it to the championships again.
I mean, technically all 3 of them qualified for the playoffs last year. And I do think that top to bottom, this is the best division in the VLA. Like the Force being the 3rd ranked team in the division is, I think they're better than Team Pineapple in the Central is like the one I'm really comparing it to. And I do think Bounce is going to have a great opportunity to turn a corner too, because they played their first 2 events without their first team all VLA setter Colin Ritter, who's amazing, and without Neil Ferraro, who plays middle or opposite. He hurt himself around New Year's and is still working his way back. So if he can't play East Cup in 3 weeks or so, I think we'll definitely see him at the VLA Cup. So I do think Boston's going to be just fine. They've got a lot of bodies. They'll figure out how to use them. And I think Force is good too. But again, this is LVC's division. This is absolutely Team LVC's division. They are not letting go of it. We haven't even seen Jordan Vari yet this year, which is insane. He's normally been like part of it's been kind of him and Joby and a bunch of regular middle characters, but their opposite position has been rotating. I do like Nate Reynolds, the new middle they picked up, and Josh Bigford is new outside they picked up. Both of those guys have been good the first 2 events, but I'm just kind of like learning the LVC way, like how that team does things. It's really impressive. They haven't skipped a beat. They are obviously the team to beat in the East. They're going to be the favorites going into the East Division Cup, and they're only going to add great experienced bodies to the roster from here. So watch out, everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, you say that this is LVC's division. I mean, right now this is LVC's league.
Yep.
The
Yes.
VLA Tier 1 is right now under LVC control, and I don't see that swaying anytime soon. I mean, they're going to come up to where the adversity will come is in VLA Cup, East Division Cup. They haven't performed out. I mean, at East Division Cup they won last year, but VLA Cup they still have yet to really put together the run that I feel like they're capable of.
Agreed.
But I mean, maybe this year is their year. There's been a lot of things changing, and they stay consistent. So when teams go up and down, there's always LVC just right there. So it could be their year for the VLA Cup as well. But I would say that they're a heavy favorite for it. But again, we got to see how they perform in the next event.
Big shout out to the Game On Sports Center just outside of Boston and Fitchburg. They did an awesome job hosting that event for us. The crowds looked spectacular. Those were good looking games, and it looked like we really did a good job putting the VLA brand of ball out there and in front of a nice crowd and a bit of a new market on the East Coast. Like we've been in Boston a couple times in previous years, but I think that this past weekend was definitely the best show we've put on as a league in that city. So I'm excited about that. I'm hopefully we can come back to that gym and I can get myself there next time.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that being in that kind of environment, obviously playing in front of the juniors is always a great time. I feel like the league and the players definitely play their best volleyball in front of a crowd like that.
Totally makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely, and so. Yeah, again, like you said, big shout out to them.
All right, that's it for the East. Let's catch up on the Central Division as it kind of helps us segue into previewing the Central Division Cup coming up this weekend. The same weekend as that first East Division event at Mohegan in early February, we also had the Central in their second event of the year in Niles, Illinois, just outside Chicago by where I am. And the big winner from that weekend, very obviously, was Swede. An unreal weekend from Swede, going 3-1, beating their crosstown rivals, the Icemen, twice. The only match they lost was that crazy 5-setter on Sunday morning to Team Pineapple, of all teams, who we'll certainly talk about in a minute. But that last match of that weekend, look at those set scores. Look at that first set. The Swede destroyed the Chicago Icemen in that first set. It was 25-14. Isaac Sageman looked like the best player in the league throughout this match. I'm not overstating that. The level that he played at, the level that Swede played at that whole game, that was a championship caliber performance. I am not kidding you when I say that. Being there, I was blown away at that high of a level. And actually, we have some stat feedback. This is an amazing data point. That first match of the weekend, when Swede beat the Icemen in 5, entire match long, 5 sets, Swede made a total of 6 hitting errors.
Wow.
6 hitting errors, blocked 5 times, 1 unforced hitting error in 5 sets. That is clean volleyball. Like, that's an insane stat. I cannot tell you in any number of sets the last time I've seen a team make a single digit number of errors combined. That's incredible. Jake Snyder, their new setter, is a monster. They have 4 very good outside hitters. They have 4 very good middles. Parker Swartz is one of the nastiest servers in the league. And when Isaac Sageman plays like that, like he did in match number 6, like, this team has legitimate championship aspirations. So, like, they were definitely the big winners of this weekend, playing on their home court at the energy facility where they practice. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, it was. And the thing is I've been saying it for like 2 years now.
Yeah, they finally backed up your take on them, eh?
Yeah. I've been behind them this whole time. They finally stepped up and and played the way that I honestly played the ball that they got promoted with.
That's right.
This is the kind of play that you saw them so dangerous in that very first event they played when they went to Fort Wayne and played against Pineapple and Iceman then, and it's just like they put everyone on notice. It's like, man, these guys are legit. They're a threat, and then they go and win the Tier 2 championships, and it's like, this is the team that we were expecting to just jump right into Tier 1. But they took their lumps last year, and this year they're obviously caught up to where they needed to be, and and I think that I don't think that they're going to be on cruise control or anything like that, but I think that they could be dangerous in Central Division Cup. I think that they could potentially, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Swede or, I will talk about that in a little bit about some of those teams. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Swede in the finals like they were 2 years ago in the Central Division Cup.
That's right. Yeah, lost in the finals of the Central Cup 2 years ago. Yeah, they looked incredible. I loved interviewing some of their guys after those 2 wins against the Icemen, especially because they've for decently good reason, they've kind of felt like the little brother in the Chicago scene for several years now. And it makes sense. Like the Icemen have been around for longer. They're a founding 5 VLA franchise. They've dominated the local Chicago scene, like outside the VLA, definitely to a greater degree than Swede has. But those 2 matches that Swede beat the Icemen and Niles, those matches proved to the Swede guys, and they told me in the interviews, prove to them that they can and will beat the Chicago Icemen in just a really important, like, emotional way for that team. And it was just amazing to see a team gain that level of confidence and play to that level that we've been kind of waiting on them to do. And that was real impressive. And I do like their chances going into this weekend for sure. But speaking of season saving wins, talked about the Northeast Force, like getting that one against Bounce in Boston last weekend. Team Pineapple coming back. I think that was a reverse sweep on Sunday morning. Yeah, it was a reverse sweep over Swede and 16-14 in the 5th. That was a season-saving game for that team with a bunch of new pieces who don't get to practice together as much. But they put really legitimately great tier 1 level volleyball together to come back and win that match. And it's all about sustainability for them, which is a big question mark. But that was nice to see because the level that Team Pineapple had played at through the 6 matches up to that point this season was not looking very good. And that was definitely an emotional lift for that team and for their staff. I know Loy, watching from afar, was very happy to see that. And just like the people who are fans and have respect for the Team Pineapple brand and its history, it was very good to see that team put something good together on that Sunday morning.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the huge shout out, one of the key factors who stayed consistent, I think, throughout this entire season so far is I don't feel like Pineapple's necessarily played poorly. I wouldn't say that they're just out there playing bad. I think that they just are in a really tough division against really good teams. And I mean, that's just the level that the VLA is at right now. There's just great teams out here, and they have to play 2 of the best in the league every single weekend they play. Evan Gebert has been playing phenomenal the entire season. He has been just keeping them going, keeping them flowing. No matter what the scores are, no matter what the circumstances, he's the guy that's always he's always good for a kill, And so I'm really excited to see how well he's playing. And I feel like the rest of the team kind of stepped up, especially in that reverse sweep, to kind of match what he was producing out there. And so it's been big seeing kind of some of these younger guys get their opportunities and starting to kind of find themselves. There's still a long ways to go as far as being a Swede or an Iceman at this point. But again, like you said, season saving season or weekend. It's that was huge for them to get that win because for one, you never want to see a team at 0-8 at the midway point of the season.
You don't.
That's just unfortunate. But seeing how they were able to, and they've been right there a couple of times. They've had matches for sets that could have prolonged and given them opportunities or swings for sets, and they just haven't really put it together all the way because they're not there yet. But them being able to get a reverse sweep against Swede, especially the way Swede has been playing, is really, really big for them.
Yeah, that was huge. Bryce Barrett, if he sticks around, he's the future of that team too. An outside hitter, he's a 6'4" kid from Wisconsin who played at Ball State. Really, really good. Was their best player in that reverse sweep win. And then Francisco Comas is the answer at libero that they've been looking for. I talked about him after the first event. He is really good, really, really good. A totally appropriate heir apparent to Sean Dryden. Like he's that level of playmaker. So Jeber stepping in primarily at opposite has been huge for him too, because that was another question mark. Now I think the question mark kind of is setter, because we've seen 3 setters for him. We've seen Jesus Serrano, we've seen Jake Romano, and then we actually saw some Chris Cox who played for the Icemen last year, has since moved to Cincinnati. He actually, I think, is going to be the only setter on the roster for Team Pineapple this weekend in Cincinnati at the Central Division Cup, who I actually really like, and I think might be the best of their 3 setters. So I think that they have a chance to make a little run here this weekend in Cincinnati. But unfortunately, with the situation they're in at 1-7, they have no choice. They must win at least 3, maybe even 4 matches this weekend to like be in the picture for potentially making the playoff spot. Otherwise, there's just too many other good teams and not enough time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a big fan of Chris Cox as well, and he's played actually some big matches. I'm not sure which team. If he was with Kong, maybe when they won it.
So he won a Tier 2 championship with Crimson last year.
Crimson, that's right.
Right after he moved to Cincinnati. Yeah.
And so I mean, he's got big match experience. I think you're right. He's kind of the guy. If they can kind of build around him and build around that core right there, they got some middles that can compete. Obviously, Matt Harper now is a big one. If they could get Matt Walsh to show up and get, I mean, that would
be a key, because I'm used to Team Pineapple. I'm used to their middle position being the most consistent and dominant thing that they've got. This season, it hasn't been that way. Matt Walsh would be a big help. So will Kevin Owens, who I think might be coming back to play this weekend.
Yeah, and both of them, if they can get those 2 in there, then you've got the pieces at every single position. And again, whether or not it will translate to consistent wins against Iceman or Swede, I mean, luckily they don't really have to play against them the rest of the year. That's the good part for them.
Right, they've already played those 8 matches.
Yeah, they've played those matches. Now moving forward, they're going to be playing against other Tier 2 teams. And then VLA Cup, they'll be playing other Tier 1 teams and other, top level Tier 2 teams. So I think that they went against I would say the power of their schedule at this point. I think that moving forward, I think that their schedule is significantly weaker than what they were dealing with. And now there's their opportunity. If those guys can come in and produce for them, I think that they have a good shot of, catching up to a rising tide ascension where, I mean, both of us are going to be playing each other again a couple times. And then we're going next to VLA Cup where, again, other Tier 1 teams and top level Tier 2 teams. So, I mean, I think this weekend is going to be really telling for what they can accomplish.
Yeah, real important. Last but not least, we got to talk about the Chicago Icemen. Of course, they still do lead this division after going 2-2. They're sitting at 6-2 with 18 points. Second best record in the league. The Icemen are looking just fine. They were missing both their starting outside hitters in this event and still came out of it okay. They didn't have Kyle Overby, who will be back this weekend. And unfortunately, we do know that Dave Hancock's going to miss the rest of the season. He got hurt in the very first match of the season. He had successful ACL repair surgery about 2 weeks ago. So he is on the mend, but he will be out definitely for the rest of the VLA season. Maybe he might catch the end of like the grass season in the summer, but just knowing Dave personally, he's going to be back with a vengeance big time in like January of 25. But that does hurt the Iceman a good bit, because Hancock was a big part of their plans, playing outside hitter, going back to the Central Division Cup this weekend, which they won last year. So now Kyle Overby is going to have to put this team on his back a little bit, because they've definitely got some question marks at the second outside hitter position next to him. Other than that, though, the Icemen look awesome. They've got 3 really, really good opposites. Colin Hackworth looked great in this last event. Luke Spicer looked really good in this last event. They've got one of the best setters in the league in Sunil Thomas. They've got, I think, the best libero in Tier 1 in Colin Merck. They've got 4. Well, now I think they've got 3 outstanding middles. They had Scott Sawicki, who I think is going to take a little step back as he became a dad about a week and a half ago. So big congrats to him, but I know he's not going to be traveling nearly as much. They still got Andre Brown, Brandon Poindexter, Zach Bultice. Like, that is a good team. So if they can put it together at outside hitter, if they can serve the ball a little bit better, that's been a strength of theirs in past seasons. I was looking at some of their numbers again. Their ace to error ratio on the season is almost 1-4. 1 ace to every 4 errors. That's not good. That is not good enough. And I think that is a little bit reflective of the league overall. An area that I think everybody in the league needs to improve is serving. I've talked about it before, that everyone needs to serve with a little more intention, with a little more strategy. But if the Icemen can get hot from the service line, the team's still absolutely championship caliber. So what did you think watching them from afar a couple weeks ago?
It's tough losing Dave Hancock because he's a guy who is very invested personally into Chicago Icemen, right? There's just certain guys. You get some that are, will show up one weekend and then won't be there the next, because of whatever reason, right? Hancock was the guy who's going to be every single event for him and producing. One of the reasons that he moved to outside hitter as opposed to staying in the middle or even an opposite position was because it's something that Iceman definitely needed. And so, them losing him, you see, just even from the results from this past weekend, even though they are 6-2 right now, it's still not the Iceman that had gone 6-2, I think 2 years ago, but you still pretty much knew they're going to be fine, right? So, it does bring up some question marks. I'm not sure if Slavinsky's going to be back. I'm not sure what the story is, or if I have any insight.
Slavinsky's over in Lundberg playing for a really good team in Germany, and then Mike Mikolau is playing over in Finland. And so it'll all just depend on the timing of those guys' overseas calendars. Like, obviously neither of them are going to be there this weekend. VLA Cup is a weekend later this year than it usually is, so maybe they can get those guys back, and if so, that is the immediate answer to those questions. But I think if there's one thing that's going to stop them from winning the Central Division Cup in a couple days, it's that second outside hitter spot. If the other teams can pick on that just a little bit, then that might be the only weakness that this Iceman roster has. Once they get Kyle Overby back, which they will this weekend, can't overstate the ability that dude has in every phase of the game.
Yeah, and again, you bring up Colin Merck, and the best libero in the VLA, hands down. For 4 years, 90% of the league, he's been dominating it. So, again, when he's in the match, you pretty much always have a chance. You're always going to be in system, serve, receive.
Yeah, why do people keep serving him again? VLA, listen to this. Vince, I'm sorry. I went on a very similar rant last year, and I'm going to do it again. Y'all have got to serve with turn the switch on your brains on when you go back to the service line. You guys got to talk to each other about serving. You got to talk to the sideline, talk to your coaches, talk to your teammates, figure out a strategy for serving, serve with intention. Don't miss float serves. I hate float service errors. And don't serve Colin Merck. Like, I'm sorry, Iceman. I'm disadvantaging you by giving away the most obvious piece of scouting data of all time. Don't serve the ball at Colin Merck. Don't do it. Everybody around the VLA, listen to this right now. I want to see people at the Central Cup serving with intention. Serve the ball at a higher level with your brains. I beg of you, please.
I will say this though, Colin Merck is the type of guy. It's like running a boxing one on Jordan, or you know what I mean. Like, he's gonna find a way to get the ball.
He will.
It doesn't. You can hide him all you want. You can serve everywhere else. He's gonna somehow find it. And either you may throw an out of system ball somehow at him, or the other way. He's gonna somehow get his hands on it, get his platform on it, and they're gonna be back in system real quick. So. He's just not a guy you can just say, oh, don't serve him, because it's not that simple. He's going to find a way to get the ball. He's going to get his contacts, and it's just going to happen. And so
I'll put it this way: stop hitting 75% speed spin serves right at his platform. That is not a good recipe for success.
That didn't work for most of the tier 1 outside or liberos. So put at least 80 on it.
Yeah, come on. The Icemen are very good. Tim Faulkner has done a great job with them this year. They are very motivated, and they have a title to defend this weekend. So before we talk about the Central Division Cup, I want to take a look at kind of the overall standings. Yeah, here we go. So we got the overall standings by division, and just a good reminder of everybody about the format of how the VLA Tier 1 season works and who makes the playoffs. So there are 8 teams in VLA Tier 1 this year. That'll grow next year. 6 make the playoffs. That is the 3 teams that win their divisions, and then the next 3 highest ranked teams overall. So basically, you win your division. There's 3 division winners, and there's 3 wild card spots. So we already talked about the West Division. One of those 2 teams, the Rising Tide or the Ascension, is going to win the West Division and will get a playoff spot automatically. And that's going to really come down to the wire. It'll probably come down to that last event in Long Beach, which is going to be electric. The East Division, I'm going to call it right now, is going to be won by Team LBC. I don't see an avenue for Bounce or Force to make up a 10, or in Force's case, a 14-point deficit in 2 events. I just don't see that happening. But both very much alive, even Force very much alive for a wild card spot. And then the Central is going to come down to the 2 Chicago teams, Iceman and Swede. It's going to be all about the Central Division Cup this weekend, and then the VLA Cup. And here's the overall standings. So you see there, like, Swede, in terms of points per match played, which is the primary metric after Cup wins, Swede's ranked 3rd overall in Tier 1 right now. Like 1.75 points per match played is an awesome number. And like you said, they've already got their hardest matches out of the way. The Rising Tide have played 1 more match and have played weaker opponents to get the same number of points as Swede. So this is going to be a very interesting race. Like the race for that 3rd wild card spot, both Force and Pineapple are still very much alive for that. With a divisional cup and the VLA Cup left to play. So that's the format. It's just going to be a really interesting race to keep an eye on this, because nobody's out of it yet by any means. And technically, other than the very likely, those top 3 teams there are likely to make the playoffs, nothing is set. It's halfway through the season, and nothing is set by any means.
Yeah, exactly. And last year, I mean, we had the Rising Tide won the West Division Cup, so they got that automatic bid that way. So I mean the fact that neither Ascension or Rising Tide won this year, it does have a lot more room to work with here with Force and Pineapple, and they have a little bit something more to strive for. I think that I think it was Pineapple last year. Swede last year really had a tough run early. I think they finished dead last in the entire league, but I think that they really didn't have a whole lot to play for near the end. And VLA Cup again they were mathematically eliminated at that point.
Yeah, so, great point. That's probably not going to be the case this year.
I can't imagine that anyone's going to be eliminated. Maybe LVC will be secure. Maybe in Iceman, Swede, they may be secure as far as winning a cup. But as far as that 6th spot right there, it's really up for anyone to grab. So it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to come down to the last event in Long Beach to decide who the 6 teams are that are going to the championships.
Yeah, it's a interesting wrinkle to have just one regular season event after the VLA Cup. Last year there wasn't really anything on the line because, like you said, the Rising Tide had won the West Cup, and the Ascension had a pretty good year and had beaten the Rising Tide in 4 different 5-setters. So we kind of knew what the playoff field was going to be anyway. But this year, unless either the Force or Team Pineapple at their respective division cups has a terrible weekend, like that's the only way anybody's going to be like out of the picture come VLA Cup time. And I wouldn't expect either of those teams to have really bad weekends at their respective divisional cups because both of them understand the situation. They understand what's on the line. They understand that their hardest events are behind them, and that really it's kind of downhill from here for the rest of the season in terms of who your matchups are against. So this race is shaping up to be probably the most dramatic in league history, at least under the current format, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. This is really exciting, and it's going to really be interesting when you see all the teams come together. Obviously, VLA Cup.
That's going. Can't wait. Can't wait for that.
Meaningful this year, knowing that half the playoff spots aren't going to be selected already. So it's going to be really exciting to see. So again, here we are where we're at, but there's definitely disadvantages, like you said, and advantages to having the meat of your schedule at the beginning compared to the West Division, which plays basically their final division event at the end of the season.
Right. So with all that, Vince, you ready for a little preview of this weekend?
Yep, let's do it.
Oh, let's do it. So we are I personally am headed tomorrow to Cincinnati, Ohio for the 2024 VLA Central Division Cup. I'm so excited about this because for the first time ever, we have a divisional cup tournament with a men's and a women's division. That is so awesome. I'm really excited about the ladies being there. Actually, I kind of want to talk about them first. Vince, you cool with that?
I 100%.
Let's talk about some women's ball. So, pretty simple event, pretty simple format as far as the women are concerned. It's just going to be, it's 4 teams. Got the Madison Embers from Madison, Wisconsin, and the Kentucky Unicorns, obviously kind of the home team in the greater like Lexington, Cincinnati area. Those two played the VLA Cup last year, and they've got some VLA matches under their belt. Newer teams to the league, we got the Steel City Surge, who has already played some exhibition tournaments this season and has got some points in the bank, which is great. And a brand new team, the Skiva Storm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is pretty close by. Brand new. They're playing their first event this weekend, which I'm really excited about. The 4 of them are going to play just a single round robin, and then the top 2 ranked teams after those 6 round robin matches are going to play in the championship match on Sunday. So real simple format, but I'm just really excited for the dynamic of the event and for the dynamic of the women's division as a whole to be able to offer them more events to play for full point value matches. Because every one of these matches is going to be worth 3 possible points instead of just 1 like all their exhibitions. So that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. And I like it also, like you said, the 3 points. A lot of these teams, Embers have been playing a little bit here and there. Surge has gotten a match in, 2 matches. Unicorns have played a tournament. Skiva, I think, is I don't think they've played yet.
No, this will be their first event, which is really cool.
Their first event, yeah. So, no, again, you see these teams that are really trying to come together. And this is our first full year of trying to run the women's division, and it's really been tough because trying to get them caught up to what the men's are doing. I mean, I know some of the team reps and some of the players and whatnot, they talk and they see what the men's are doing, and like 50 teams already, and but it didn't happen overnight. It was right. 5 years.
Yeah, we've got a 4-year head start.
So the fact that the women are actually where they're at right now, they're ahead of the game as far as where the men's were. So
right, yeah, there's 16 teams in only like the kind of 1.5 yeah, not even a full year. That's way more than the men were at. Like 2021 VLA Cup men's, I think we had like 11 teams.
We had 11 teams,
yeah, so the women are way ahead of the game. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And so and they're working hard. A huge shout out to everyone involved and all the team reps that have been working hard, communicating and trying to get things set up, and trying to play even in some of the matches that they've been doing, the tournaments that they've been playing, and so it's great that we're finally able to get a cup event together for them to compete in and work to play, and just get the women's game going for the VLA.
Yep, it's awesome. It's awesome to give everybody we can an opportunity to play good ball, and that championship match on Sunday is going to be huge just because that counts as a cup win. Like the Midwest Magic have one from last year. Like there's going to be another team, and it's going to be one of these 4. It's going to have a cup win in the standings, and that down the line for like tournament seeding in every event, and for eventually when we reach enough participation and events and points, all that, to start thinking about maybe a women's tier 1 division. That cup win, whoever gets this one this weekend, is going to be massive. And I'm excited to see these teams like figure themselves out, figure each other out. Be another part that's fun with just a 4-team round robin pool is that whatever the championship match is guaranteed to be a rematch from pool play. And with the women's division being as young as it is, I actually love that because it could be 3-0 one way in pools and 3-0 the other way in the final, like just as easily. It's very chaotic, very unpredictable is what we learned from last year's VLA Cup. And I mean that in the best possible way, that makes for a good sports product.
Oh, for sure. And then the other side of that is, you start to create these rivalries. The men's division has been going for 5 years now, and even longer when we consider the PVL era. And so, you're going to start seeing Embers playing Surge. You're going to see Surge playing Unicorns. And this is just the start of all that, and it was kind of one of those things when Swede just kind of came out of nowhere, played in the VLA Cup in 2021. And, some of the Chicago teams knew who they were, but, they got to finally play against a broader range of teams. And there were some interesting storylines that came out of that. So that's exactly what's going to happen here. Is you're going to see some of these teams. There's going to be 7 brand new players, representing the VLA women's all tournament team for the Central Division Cup.
Yeah, great point.
You're going to get names out there. You're going to start getting, just different recognition of certain players. And soon, we're going to be talking about some of these girls the same way we talk about Colin Merck. And it's going to be, hey, don't serve her. And so hopefully they make their serves though better than the men's side.
I hope so too. No 1-4 ace to air ratios. None of that.
Better than that, but no, I mean, it's just really exciting to see something fresh and something new popping up like this, and something that we're going to be talking about for years. So I mean, it's really exciting to see the first cup that is not a VLA Cup in the women's division.
Love it. Yeah, can't wait. Format's real simple. So 4-team round robin. All the info's on the website, which we'll take a look at in a minute. But yeah, we're excited to get more women's teams involved. And if you are a women's team out there or a women's volleyball player out there, you want to get involved with the VLA, please do get in touch with us. Write us a comment on YouTube, send us a DM on Instagram, like whatever. We will find a place for you as an individual or you as a team or whatever. We want as many people involved as possible. So, all right, let's take a look at the men's tournament because there's a lot more to preview here. This is a 16-team 4-pool banger, which I love. We were thinking, like, I remember Vince, like preseason, we were like, all right, are we going to cap all the divisional cups at 12 this year? Because last year it just really got out of hand with scheduling and playing matches at midnight. But then there were so many teams in the Central, and we had the court space at this incredible facility and at this Spooky Nook Champion Mill facility in Hamilton, which I can't wait to be at. We're like, yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer to open this up to 16 teams. So we have done that. We've got a phenomenal group of teams, 4 really interesting pools, bracket pool format, of course. So we can talk about this to kind of set the stage for pool play. Everybody's guaranteed 2 matches in pools. If you go 0-2 in pools, you finish 4th and you do not make the bracket. The gold bracket or the championship bracket at this tournament is only 12 teams. So you got to finish top 3 in your pool. All you have to do is win 1 of your 2 matches, and you do get to the bracket. If you go 0-2 in pools, you'll play a silver bracket. But 1 plays 4 as far as seeds. 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3. Winners play for first, losers play for third. Real simple, 4 matches per pool. You can look up more about this on the website. And so with that in mind, we know kind of what our initial pool matchups are going to be. We'll go pool by pool and kind of break this down. My personal favorite pool is Pool A, Vince. I love this pool because you get the Chicago Icemen, the number 1 seed overall, against the Chicago Vibes. The Chicago Vibes are the only new team in this tournament, the only team that has never played a VLA Cup tournament before. But you might think like, oh, it's a brand new team. They're going to have no idea what they're doing. Wrong. This is Chicago Swedes' direct Tier 2 affiliate.
This is Ascension's Team 9.
This is Ascension's Team 9, and Team 9 literally won the West Division Cup. So the Chicago Vibes team is good. They have played a bunch in the preseason. They've lost like overtime barn burners to the Milwaukee Dive in preseason tournaments, and we all know how good Dive is. Like, this Vibes team is sick. And as far as like 4 seeds that the Icemen could have drawn, they're probably pissed off about how this broke out because that is not going to be an easy first round match for them. Vibes are young, they're really explosive. They've got pretty good size, especially on the right side and in the middles. And I'm just excited about them. I think they're, as far as like dead last seeds in a VLA tournament ever, they're probably the scariest one we've ever had.
Yeah, I would say pretty close. I'll have to do some research on that because I've seen some pretty dangerous 20 seeds before. But,
yeah, I mean, Emiola won the VLA Cup in 22 as like the 16 seed overall at a 19 team. It's something ridiculous.
I think they selected that seed though, but
that's right. That's right.
But yeah, I mean, this is what's dangerous for the Icemen is Icemen traditionally, and I'll have to look up the exact statistic, but have traditionally had fared poorly against Tier 2 teams in this event. And another team that they've struggled with before is Flow.
That's right.
Really good. They've done pretty well against Breeze. I don't think that not that they should overlook them or anything. I don't think they're quite as concerned about the Breeze Buddy Bears, Slunkers rebrands year to year. But again, Iceman, if they sleep on Vibes, they're going to be in trouble.
They're going to get beat. Yeah.
But I think that knowing and understanding that first match is the most important, really, and that they need to get that first win just so that they can make sure that they're in the gold bracket. I think that they'll focus on this team and make sure they get that win. But the thing is I think Vibes is very dangerous and one of, like you said, the most dangerous lowest seed we've had probably ever.
Yeah, very long time. So yeah, Iceman versus Vibes is going to be an awesome first round matchup. The River City Flow against the 630 Breeze, I think, is going to be really fun too. It's actually, Vince, this is now the third year in a row that the Chicago Icemen and the River City Flow have been in the same pool. At third Central Division Cup in a row. Remember, Flow beat them first thing in the morning on Saturday in 2022. Then they played last year, and the Icemen, I think, swept them easily. So they're 1-1 in this particular tournament in history. I kind of hope that they get to play again for first in this pool, because it would be a banger of a match. And this Flow roster this weekend looks very, very good. They've got, let's see, three great middles in Nestor Payne, Langston Payne, and Graham Gresham. That's awesome. That's an amazing trio.
Fantastic.
Sam Albus on the right gets a weekend off from coaching Lise McRae. That's big. Nick Drucker at setter is one of my favorite setters in the league. And Garrett Dim is a very capable libero. And then maybe one of the big pickups in all of the VLA, Serge Nadazhdin is playing for the River City Flow. And him and Colton Stone on the left, that's starting 7 potential. That's like a favorite to potentially win this tournament.
Yeah. If Serge Nadazhdin's on, especially with him playing with a setter like Nick, it's going to be pretty dynamic. It's going to be really exciting to see. And Serge is playing really well right now. And again, I agree. I think this is probably one of the biggest pickups from another team in the VLA. I would say even bigger than Joe Kaliakamoa going to Rising Tide, because I think that with Serge going to Flow, it's a little bit there. It's a piece that Flow really
needed. Great point.
I think that other outside hitter, I think that Serge really puts them over the cusp of the potential that they've had for the longest time. But again, depth has been one of their issues, and not really just being able to complete a tournament. And so I think that I agree. I think that I would love to see Flow Iceman battle it out to see who's going to have the winning record against each other in this morning pool.
Yeah. And the 630 Breeze is good too. Not to be overlooked. That is a rock solid team, really good organization. But with all that said, I'm talking about all these 3 teams, I still think the Chicago Icemen are going to win this pool. I actually still do think they're the best team in this tournament, top to bottom. They definitely have the best individual middle blocker in this tournament. If you guys haven't seen Andre Brown play yet, my goodness, I can't say enough about how much of a difference maker that dude is. They also have the best libero in the tournament in Colin Merck. They probably have the best setter in the tournament in Sunil Thomas, although Nick Drucker is probably pretty close. And then they have Kyle Overby back, and they have great options at basically every other position except maybe second outside hitter. I think the Icemen are the best team in this tournament. They've got a great chance to win. I think they still win Pool A, even though it might be the most competitive of the 4.
Yeah, I would have to. It's really hard to go against Iceman, especially in this tournament. Defending champs of the Central Division Cup. So, I have to agree. But I think if either of the teams if the loss that they're going to get is going to be against Vibes, in my opinion, if they sleep on them.
Okay, yeah, just like a slow match first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Pool B. This is the Chicago Swedes pool. Swede gets to take on the Midwest Mac out of Michigan in the first round, and then the Kentucky Unicorns get to take on the Milwaukee Gold. That match I'm actually very excited about. I think those two might have played maybe last year's VLA Cup. I'm not sure if that sounds right or who would have won, but
they've played each other, I believe, also this year in the Central Division qualifier for an important match, and I think that Gold won that tournament. where they thought that they would actually need that to get into the tournament. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they played there too. But I mean, they've seen each other a handful of times. This
Okay.
is not number one.
Yeah, and although I like the Midwest MAC, I agree with your point in the chat earlier. They are the best team in the state of Michigan. There actually are 4 teams in Michigan now, which is amazing. I have an attachment to a lot of those guys because I used to live there. I played with a bunch of them. Swede will not have a problem with the Midwest MAC. I will go ahead and put that out there right now. Swede has their sights set on potentially winning this tournament, and they actually are pretty good historically at not overlooking teams. However, what did happen at this very tournament last year is Swede came into their pool as the number 1 seed, and they got upset by a 4 seed in their pool, which was none other than the Kentucky Unicorns. As the Unicorns were really like making their first preliminary statement in their VLA history. So the winner of that Unicorns versus Gold game, it is going to be a very legitimate test for Swede in the game to win Pool B. And honestly, like Unicorns versus Gold is a coin flip. Like both those teams are super solid.
Yep, I agree. And Gold and Swede are no strangers to each other either.
Right.
So I think that
they played a couple weeks ago. Chandler put up on an event in Milwaukee, and yep. I think they played up there.
Yep, Swede won that match, but again, I mean, you see teams enough, you start to figure each other out, and then it becomes less about just talent straight against each other to where it becomes more of a chess match. And I expect if Gold does make it to play Swede, I mean that's going to be a toss up. It's going to be something that isn't going to go 3.
No, definitely not.
And I think the same thing with the Unicorns. If whichever team gets past each other there, I think that they're going to have that match for Pool B is going to be really good.
Yeah, I think it will too. And worth pointing out, this is basically a home game for the Kentucky Unicorns. They're sponsored by the Cincinnati Attack Volleyball Club. And for people like not really familiar with that part of the country, Cincinnati is directly across the river from Lexington, Kentucky. So like that, and even like the southeastern corner of Indiana, like those 3 states are all kind of in one little bubble, and the Kentucky Unicorns pulls from all those areas. So them coming up to Cincinnati, they are basically the home team at this event, and I'm sure they'll have a crowd on hand, and their women's team is playing, and that's just all going to be really cool for them. So good vibes for that team. I'm still going to pick Swede to win this pool, though. I was that impressed by their performance a month ago in Niles that I think that they will take care of whoever they play in this pool and will make a very legitimate run at winning this tournament.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with him. I've always got Swedes back. So, I expect them to continue to do big things. I expect them definitely to win this pool as well.
All right, moving on to Pool C, we've got Team Pineapple, the 3 seed overall. They have a tough draw as well. They get the Nashvilleans as their 4 seed. They play them in the first round. We saw Nashville make their VLA Cup Series debut in San Diego, and they were awesome. They went all the way to the semis and lost like a crazy 5-set match to Team 9, who went on to win the tournament. So Nashville is really good, and they already have like proven success in a format like this. And then you get the all Wisconsin match of 2 versus 3, the Milwaukee Dive against the Madison Inferno. That one I think is much less interesting. I think Dive is substantially better than Inferno, and Dive is another team that could very easily win this tournament. And we might as well talk about it right now. We already talked about the Unicorns. The Kentucky Unicorns are coming into this tournament with 76 points. The Milwaukee Dive come into this tournament with 81 points. The first of those 2 teams to get to 100 points cumulatively will get promoted to the Tier 1 Central Division. So that race is very real. That is a 1 versus 1 race. Dive versus Unicorns. Dive barely have a 5-point edge. Every point matters for both those teams in a big way. And if there was any danger of a team like Dive overlooking a team like Inferno, given those stakes, that is not going to happen. I predict that Dive will destroy Inferno 3-0, and I would be surprised if Inferno got to 20 points in a set. That's how seriously I think Dive is taking this tournament.
And I'll point this out too with Pool C. The worst thing that can happen to Dive in Pool C is that the Nashvilleans upset Team Pineapple, because that's an extra point that they would be playing Team Pineapple for.
Great point.
And I'll just say it. I think Milwaukee Dive's winning this pool.
Dive's going to win this pool.
100%.
I agree. Dive's going to win this pool. Dive is the best team in this pool. I agree.
I think the only issue with Nashvilleans against Pineapple is I would say the brand experience against each other. I know that Team Pineapple carries a lot of weight going in, but I think that also Nashvilleans have some middle changes. They were very pin heavy when we saw them in the West Division Cup anyways. And CJ Riveria, amazing libero.
Very good libero.
I think that they have the key pieces. I think where Pineapple, if Pineapple's middles are on point, I think that's where they could be take advantage of Nashvilleans. But that's really, if I had to compare the two, I think that Nashvilleans have a really good opportunity to win that match. And
I agree. It's definitely got. I think that they're the best. They're the 4th seed that has the best chance to win their first round match.
Yeah, I would say so too. Even with Vibes, playing as well.
Vibes are good. I think Niagara might have a decent chance against Cleveland. I don't know that much about either of those two teams, but yeah, I rate Nashville really highly. I was really impressed by them in San Diego. I think and organizationally, they really have figured it out quickly. I'm impressed. However, I completely agree. Dive is going to win this pool, and Dive is hoping that Pineapple beats Nashville so that they can get 4 points from beating them in the second pool game. That's exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, they're hoping that they get Pineapple in the finals so that they get that extra point. So, I think this one's a pretty safe one to predict right now.
One other thing, I put the link to the Central Division Cup webpage in the chat, that section of the website. We'll scroll through it in a minute and talk a little bit more. But if you win your pool, you get a bye in the bracket. You go straight to the quarterfinals. Whereas if you finish second or third, you got to play a play-in game. So there's an advantage to that too, of having one less match to play to make a deeper run in the tournament. Maybe you want to I don't know. If you really want to try and play the game, you can maybe try and lose the second match in 5 and try and get a point and then win your play-in game and get 3 points. I don't know. I think that's playing with fire, but there is an advantage to winning your pool. You go straight to the quarterfinals.
If any team's going to do something like that, it's the Unicorns. Not so much the Dive. I think Dive is just no, we're just going to go beat everyone. Unicorns are the ones that are going to be you know what? Hey, let's just go ahead and drop these next 3 sets. We already got 2 points. We'll beat the next team. I could see Unicorns playing that game, and that's probably why they are where they're at right now. And there is this battle between the two teams, but yeah, I just don't see a team just intentionally giving up or even playing lighter because of that.
I don't either. I don't either. I don't really think there's a benefit
no one
to
wants
it.
to have to play 6 matches to get to the finals.
No, that's a lot. All right, last but not least, Pool D. Pool D is the wild card pool. I have no way to predict this pool. Cleveland Kong is the 1 seed, Columbus Crimson the 2, Steel City Surge out of Pittsburgh the 3, and the Niagara Frontiersmen from Buffalo is the 4. These teams have played each other a lot in exhibitions, more so last season than this season. But Kong, it's crazy to me that Kong, as active as they've been the last couple of years, this I think is their first event of the season that's worth points. They've played a couple local college teams.
They played two exhibitions earlier in the year, lost to Crimson and lost to maybe Unicorns. The 2 exhibition matches earlier in the season, and they lost both. But other than that, Kong has been completely I don't want to say inactive. They're always active as far as they're a team, but I think that they understood this season what they could accomplish.
Right.
And so they're kind of playing the bare minimum because they know that it probably wasn't in the cards for them to get to Tier 1 this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because you look at this lineup right here and you've seen these 3 teams play each other. Probably 30 times against each other.
It's crazy. Crimson versus Surge, and then Niagara versus Cleveland. Those teams have played each other so much.
This is literally its own Tier 2 division.
It kind of is
in the VLA.
It's like the Rust Belt division.
Yeah, exactly. It's just right there, and so No, I mean, this is a really cool division because they do see each other. Very meaningful points right now. I mean, no, the VLA is in control of these matches, not each other. There's no home court bias or anything like that. So, it's gonna be really cool to see these teams play each other and you see where they kind of end up. And again, it's a huge wild card because Kong and Crimson haven't played a lot. Steel City Surge has played a little bit. Niagara Frontiers has played a lot, but they have Frontiersmen. They've played a lot, but they haven't really capitalized on a lot of the events that they have.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of points to show for it.
Right. Yeah, they've played a lot of matches, but they haven't really won a lot. But this is good because I feel like the Frontiersmen traditionally have done better in the cups as opposed to just going and playing the exhibition matches.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that.
yeah, so I think this is an opportunity for them. I could see actually in this group a lot of 5-setters. I wouldn't be surprised if all three of these teams end up with 3 points at the end of this pool, in some form or fashion.
Yeah, actually, I could see that
I guess
too.
one of them would end up with 2 and one of them with 4, but I mean, I could just see it just being that equal of a thing where it's like, yeah, who actually won that?
Yeah, that interesting pool. And I mean, by the way, these seeds are not random. They're not subjectively chosen by the VLA. These are straight up in snake order from 1 through 16 of like the way that the VLA ranks things. So it goes the 3 tier 1 teams ranked by points per match played, then all the tier 2 teams in order, first cup wins, then cumulative points. And like the Cleveland Kong and the Columbus Crimson having those cup wins will forever change the way they get seeded in these tournaments. Like Kong won the 2022 East Division Cup and Crimson won the 2023 Tier 2 Championship. And like that will always get them higher seeds at these tournaments. That just is a fact that is the way our tournaments work. And it also happens to work out that they will often get seeded against each other. Like they really, I think at Central Cup last year, they were also the top 2 seeds in the 4th pool. And I think Crimson ended up winning that pool. So because I know nothing about these teams, I'll go ahead and pick Crimson to win it again.
There you go.
Seriously, I have no idea. And that's fun. Like, again, wild cards and chaos and unpredictability, like that's fun. That's what sports is all about.
Yeah. No, it's going to be an exciting pool, especially because I feel like the A, B, and C are a lot more predictable. I mean, we've seen these teams time and again already this season. So seeing just a bunch of fresh new teams that have had a lot of experience, and you just don't know how they're playing right now because you haven't seen them in 5-6 months. I think it brings a fresh new perspective to the lineup here, and so those matches are going to be extra interesting because they are kind of paired up against each other. They are familiar to each other for sure.
Right. So taking a look at the tier 2 divisional standings, we already talked about the race to 100 in the Central, Dive 81, Unicorn 76. You got like 630 Milwaukee, Gold anyway, Inferno, Villains even. Like they've all had nice performances so far, but they're not going to be a factor for promotion anytime soon. Definitely if they're trying to get to the tier 2 championship this year, like every point will help, but the drama is definitely going to come down to Dive versus Unicorns as far as Central teams go. The East is a lot more wide open, kind of like you said. Like I don't see anybody getting a promotion this year unless, because the target is 100 or 3 cup wins. So unless like Cleveland or Columbus goes out and wins 2 tournaments this year, I don't really see anybody getting promoted this year, but I think all the teams in the East kind of know that. So, and they've kind of built their schedules this season a little bit more lightly to position themselves to push next season, if that makes sense. But anyway, like Cleveland's at 63, Flow 54, and Crimson 42. And then Surge is about 20 points behind that as far as point races go in the East.
I do want to point out in this East Division race that I think that Kong's inactivity and Crimson's inactivity this year, and then we'll see Flow's coming together here for the Central Division Cup, and then they play again the VLA Cup, which is great for them. They'll get points, but I think that if they continue to sleep, you look at one team down there, 7-0.
DC Dynasty.
they, from all the rumors I've heard, are very dangerous.
Yeah, that seems very good, and they're actually hosting an event this weekend in DC. It won't be full point value matches, but there will be points coming out of there. I think I can't remember who's going exactly, but there's a good amount of activity going out there, as well as in the West. The Bay Area Dimes are hosting an event this weekend with a bunch of teams on the West Coast, like Seattle's going, brand new team, the Austin Jam is going up there. I think San Diego Wave is going up there. So it's not just about the Central Division Cup this weekend. There's stuff on the East Coast and stuff on the West Coast. It's going to be worth points. Not as much, but it'll still be worth points.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a huge weekend, but back to the point with the East Division, it's you hate to see some of these teams sleep thinking they're comfortable, because I feel like Dive did that last year.
Yep.
And then
all of a sudden the Unicorns caught them.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen next year, or by the end of this year. I think DC Dynasty, I think that they are going to have a great East Division Cup. I think they're going to have a great VLA Cup. They're going to continue to get points, and I think that I would not be surprised if they even qualify for Tier 2 championships. Maybe win a Tier 2 championship. That puts them right there with Con.
Yep, right there.
So, I not to predict a whole lot, but you follow a team, you see how active they are, see all the work that they're putting in, and it's very, very similar. They're following the Unicorns path, and Unicorns are right there to that Tier 1 quality. So I really hope that they're kind of waking up and recognizing, hey, we better get our stuff into gear here, otherwise we're going to get passed up.
Yeah, shout out to DC Dynasty. I know Luke Braswell is setting that team, who won the East Cup with Team LVC last year. And Matt Friddle, who I saw in the chat earlier, he's a Chicago buddy of mine who moved out there and is playing for him. And that team looks real good from everything that I can tell. And then in the West, we don't have any West teams coming to Cincinnati, do we?
Nope.
No, I don't think so. But we already talked about Dallas. That promotional race is over. They've got it. The next target in the West will be 100 points and 3 cup wins, just like the other divisions.
Yep. And I think, we look at Kingsman and what they're doing, and they're playing everything. They're going to be playing East Division Cup, VLA Cup.
They're going to the East Division Cup? Wow, I didn't know that.
Cup. Yep, you'll be seeing that very, very soon. So, and they travel decently well. I mean, they are 7-1. I mean, the loss that they had was
I think a 5-setter to the Rising Tide.
Yeah, and so I mean, they beat Ascension in 5. They actually beat Ascension in a Tier 2 event. So I mean, they are a really, really solid team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a bunch of points this weekend, and we'll see what they do in the rest of the year. But they're a sleeper. If Dogs didn't do what they did to the West Division this past event, I would be concerned if I was another team. But luckily for the Dogs, they got there. So
yeah. All right. So I think last but not least, last thing I want to do is give people a bit of a tour of the Central Division Cup page on the website. This will be your number one resource throughout the weekend for what's going on with this tournament. It's got everything for you about the format of both the men's and the women's events. It's got all of the teams and how they're seated and all their current point values coming into the tournament. You got the pools and the pool bracket format, like we already talked about. You got the pool schedule, and which is where the results will be. This is what the bracket will look like. So you already know what the pool crossover matchups are going to be based on who finishes where, and the schedule for the bracket and consolation matches and all that. You have the schedule for the women's division, just simple one court, 6 matches, round robin pool play. And then this is a really important resource, especially if you're playing in the tournament. This is the schedule grid that we always put together. That's like the number one resource. If you're going to be there, at the tournament, either as a player, coach, spectator, whatever, this is what you're going to want to look at for who is playing where and when, including work assignments. So if you're a part of a team, make sure you look at that and you know exactly where you're going to be and when. So a 5-court event, those 4 courts, 1, 2, 5, and 6 will be the men's for the whole weekend. They're kind of like next to each other in a 2x2 arrangement. And then immediately next to that is court 3, where the women are going to be playing the whole time. So it's going to be a great event. If you're in really the Midwest anywhere, and you can get yourself to Cincinnati, you should. I'm excited about this venue, the Spooky Nook Champion Mill site. They are really excited about partnering with the VLA. We already know that we are headed right back to this same place for the championship event this year in June. So it's going to be great to get boots on the ground and get a feel for what's going on out there. I know the Unicorns have already hosted events there. And then broadcasting wise, of course, right here on YouTube for every match, you will have a dedicated live stream for every single match. I think there's how many games are there, Vince? Like, I think there's 8 women's matches and something like 35 men's matches or something like that.
Right. 35, I think, is where we're at with the men's
Insane.
matches.
So a lot of matches. There will be streams for every one of them. Those individual streams will be available for members only, but there will also be the VLA all-day broadcasts. We're going to have full production on it with our legendary friend Michael Wooten will be there with full camera equipment and the full like whip around NFL red zone style broadcast that you might have seen last year. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be by far the best way to follow along with the whole tournament. I'm going to be covering every court, and that's going to be great, and it'll be free to the public right here on the YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and pick up a membership if you haven't already, so that you just have that ready to go to watch all the matches individually.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch it. I'll be in California coaching my Parkview Gilbert boys, so I'll be sitting on the beach and watching a bunch of VLA on my iPad
and chirping people in the chat, as Vince is famous for doing.
Exactly. That's what. Yep. All right, AJ Witkowski, where are you?
Where is he? At the end of the bench? Where are you at?
Fifth best middle in any match.
In any match he plays in. That's one of my favorite chirps in VLA history. I do want viewers of this show and people who watch the VLA in general. I want people to talk more trash in YouTube live chats. I want people to send more messages. Like be entertaining, because like every time I'm doing a live stream or if I'm at an event, I'm looking at the chat. So just get in there, get active. It makes it.
Well, I'm looking at it too.
Vince is always looking at it.
Who wants to spar with me?
Who wants to fight? Who wants to argue? It's great. It's going to be a great weekend of VLA, really coast to coast. Obviously, there's a big focus on the Central Division Cup, but activity in DC, activity in the Bay Area, and then the women's division, of course, in Cincinnati for the first time ever is just really, really cool. So, yeah, big weekend of the VLA. You're in the right place right here on YouTube to follow along with it all. Catch us on Instagram. The website link in the description is an awesome resource as well. Vince, anything else, or can we get the people out of here just before midnight my time?
No, absolutely. Looking forward to the huge weekend of volleyball, one of the biggest ever. So, it's going to be a great weekend. So, look to see you guys in the chats.
Yep. All right. We'll see you soon on Around the VLA. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, live from Cincinnati for the Central Division Cup.